You're listening to the Cash Flow Academy podcast with Andy Tanner, your source for investing made easy. Here's Andy Tanner.
Welcome to the Cash Flow Academy podcast. I'm your host, Andy Tanner. This is where we do our very, very best to make investing simple and also business. And we're going to be talking about both of those today with something that I feel like I've got to catch up with, and that's AI. I think everybody feels that way. And I've certainly been using, chat GDP and, all types of things for the business. It's certainly changing the investing world. And so today I have a very special guest. She is the author of, and I'm going to read this because it's a detailed title, The Business Case for AI, A Leader's Guide to AI Strategies, Best Practices, and Real-World Applications. We have Kavita Ganesan today. And Kavita, thank you for spending some time with us. And you're going to make us all experts on AI in the next half hour. Is that right?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Andy. Yeah.
This is a treat. If you would, let's begin with you and your background and what led you to become interested in this field of machine learning and this new world we're in, and also what prompted you to write the book. Give us a little background, please.
Journey in AI started in the early 2000s. So as you can imagine, at that time, AI was a very academic concept. So that's where I really started. And that's when I got introduced to AI, when I was pursuing my master's program. And what really drew me into the field was the problem-solving aspect. So even though the techniques may be the same, every problem is unique. And you'll have to pair creative problem solving with the AI algorithms and basically try to make things work. So that's what really drew me into AI. And I specifically was drawn into natural language processing, a subfield of AI, which you hear about a lot. And that's kind of related to large language models that you've been hearing in social media. And that's where I really started on the academic side. But over time, as AI started to get more popular in industry, I went into different companies and solved problems for them as an employee. And as I was doing this practical hands-on work, other companies were needing help because they saw me solving all these problems and they wanted to replicate it in their business. So that's how I got more and more into a consulting role, which is what I'm doing right now. So a lot of consulting, teaching, helping people design AI systems. But I'm not an employee anymore, but I'm working as a consultant. And what prompted me to write the book is because I've been in this field for such a long time, I've seen a lot of the problems in the field. Like there's a clear gap between what AI means in the technical world versus what it really is to non-technical people. And these are the people who are making decisions around AI. And if they don't understand what it is, how to think about it, how to form their mindset, then a lot of these applications are not going into production. And I see these AI models failing all the time. And it's not because the problems were unsolvable. It's like all the other reasons, like mismatch expectations. Leaders want AI to solve a whole range of problems when it's actually developed for a very specific problem. So a lot of these issues can be resolved by forming the leader's mindset. So which is how the book really came about. And it's a starting point for a lot of my clients.
Fantastic. So AI is and I get nervous because I don't even know if I know the best questions to ask. So this will be one of the more difficult interviews because, generally if someone's going to talk about general business or general investing or the Fed or macroeconomics, I'm extremely comfortable. For a guy that struggles to learn how to run his phone, I had my whole smart home done, the smart home. And I didn't know that it meant I had to be the smart one. So this will be tough. I think people expect AI to be like a machine that thinks like a person. That's certainly not it. That's certainly not, what's going on with the ones and zeros behind. It's not thinking like a person. And I also think AI now is such a buzzword if someone has an algorithm, they're automatically, AI. So there's machine learning, there's generality learning, there's specific, like if you want to teach it to, let's learn how to play Go or chess. And so maybe start there in talking about the difference of how should a person like me think about AI? Because when you're on GTB chat, you're treating it like it's a human being. You're treating like you're interacting with a human being. You're not at all. Could you talk about some of those differences?
Years ago, I think in the 1990s and before that, so just for context, AI started in the 1940s, so it's a very old concept. But historically, AI systems have been rules-based. So you take a human's knowledge and you encode it in the form of software rules.
Yeah.
And in the early 2000s, this actually changed. So we had algorithms that can learn from data. So basically, if you're trying to predict if a credit card transaction is fraudulent or not, you'll have examples of fraudulent transactions and non-fraudulent ones. So these algorithms dig into this data and learn signals that make a transaction this class or the other. So it's learning underlying patterns just by looking at data. And for some applications, for some models, you have to provide those answers. Like this is the fraudulent ones, this is the non-fraudulent ones, learn something from it. And some, the unsupervised algorithms, they don't need to be told, like these are the correct answers. It tries to uncover the patterns on its own. So that's basically the foundation of AI systems today. It is very data driven. So without data, there is no ChatGPT. So
Right,
ChatGPT has learned from massive amounts of data on the web, and it's learned those underlying patterns. So how does it know how to complete sentences? Because it's seen similar sentences in its data bank. So that's why it's able to generate things that are so coherent.
So I wanted to kind of structure our interview to have some form to it, but I think I don't care because I'm more interested in just having a conversation. So let's digress wildly. Yeah. When we talk about data, almost as, this is probably a poor metaphor, but let's say it's like food for AI. The more data it has, the more information that's available, the better, the larger the data set, the better. So when I think about the 1960s and Sputnik, when it flew across the sky and everyone says, okay, the Russians are in space. And John F. Kennedy says, okay, no, we've got to get to the moon before them for whatever reason. So you have this space race of what superpower in the world is really going to do, land on the moon first. Isn't that, it's about getting there first. It's about this technology race, right? Yep. So I look at China, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but China to me seems like they have less privacy protection, less of a culture that says, look, I don't want you looking at my data. I don't want you looking at my life. Mm-hmm. And so but China's the opposite. They have tons of people. They said, look, we're going to get all the data from you. We're going to know when you charge your cell phone and how long and what time and whether you charge it the whole way or halfway or what time of day. I mean, they're going to go down to every detail of their life. Does that give China a big advantage in the space race for the best artificial intelligence?
It depends. It depends on how they're using that data. So are they using it for the right applications? So there are two things to this. One is the strategy. So how are you using that data and for what purpose? Yeah. So if you're using it for a very a purpose that doesn't give you much, it gives you marginal improvements.
Bang for the buck.
Yes, and that's not going to really give you anything. But if you use a very simple model for a purpose that's like going to give you a huge boost in something, then that really makes a difference. So I think the US is very strategic in a lot of sense in how they use this technology versus just use it for everything, like policing people.
Right, and things or whatever. Really,
yeah.
So why? So when in 1993-ish, early 90s, we came up with this protocol called Hypertext Transfer Protocol. We come up with a protocol for emails, SMTP type stuff. And at that point, if you were a business, you're either on the web and joining this, or you're really going to be obsolete. And now it's crazy. I mean, customer service is go visit us on the web, or if you want to book tickets, go visit us on the web. If you want anything, go visit us on the web. So a business absolutely had no choice if they wanted to compete to be in that revolution. And it seems so small now in terms of it's not that hard to do. Okay, AI, we invented a printing press, which was a pretty big advancement for humankind. When you print the printing press, now you can disseminate information widely. Then you get some TV and some radio and some telegraph. Now we can really, we're connected through wires. The internet, incredible amounts of information. But this AI will probably be as big as an advancement and a big new chapter, a new era as any humankind has ever seen. What does it mean for a business to catch up? Someone like me, you've got to be ahead of this curve or you're just going to get buried. I mean, is that accurate to say that you've got to join this revolution? You got to use AI in your business.
You do. And especially for a small business, the way to think about it is, how can I use the AI-based tools that are already available to make myself more productive? That's because a lot of writers are writing articles much faster. A lot of people are doing their research much faster, just using public tools like ChatGPT. Not even they don't even buy the license or buy the APIs. They just use it. So that's one way to look at it. The other way is, how can a business improve its productivity significantly using AI in its workflows? And a lot of those opportunities are often hidden. It's not clear where you will use AI. So you'll have to look for things that you're currently doing manually, repetitively, which requires complex thinking. So those are the areas that you can really augment with AI. Maybe not replace the whole workflow, but even augmenting the most inefficient process with an AI system can make that person more productive. And I've seen this happening all the time.
ChatGPT has been wonderful for me. Learning the skill of prompts now, and with the artwork, phenomenal. That you can ask it to build a graphic or build a picture, and learning. I never thought prompting was going to be a skill you'd have to learn. How do you build a good prompt? And then you ask one AI to build a prompt for the other AI. And it's crazy. The obsolescence risk. I think it's interesting. When we started to have an information age, which many may argue now is a misinformation age, when that started to change, your chances of being obsolete in years was really high. Now, I feel like you could be obsolete in months. The exponential nature of this, you write a textbook and that thing could be toast in 6 months. I mean, it's really an interesting world. Let me ask you this one. So how do I gain literacy? Obviously we have the business case for AI, a leader's guide to AI strategies, best practices, and real world applications. So I guess reading, but beyond getting your book and beginning to read it, how does a business owner, particularly smaller businesses, what's the best route to really learn this stuff?
So the foundations really help, because people now think of AI as this walking, talking bot, but really it's a difference. It's different subfields of studies coming together to solve different problems. So even understanding those subfields will give them some basic background on what is AI. Like AI is coming together of computer vision, natural language processing, technologies like deep learning, which is the foundation of all these generative AI applications. Like, what is machine learning? So understanding these sub-technologies will help them get an idea of how things really work. And then you have to see how are companies using AI. So that's to spark ideas. So if you see a company using AI chatbot in customer service, so you might have an idea to use it on your company website. So get those use cases, build that up. And then be strategic. Like AI may provide marginal benefits in some cases, but huge boost in productivity improvement in some other cases. So be strategic about where you want to use AI because it's not cheap. Those ChatGPT APIs that you're paying for is not free. You only have certain number of prompts that you can use. So yeah.
Great stuff. Let's talk a little bit about how this works in the investing world. And particularly in markets. Now, I think that people should panic less in this area. They should feel less behind in this area, and I'll tell you why. And you can tell me, and if I'm wrong, tell me, because I need to know if I really need to know if I'm wrong on this one. This one's an important one. A lot of people would worry about what we call high frequency trading. So, there's great books, about, there's The Big Short, and there's Flash Boys. Flash Boys is an interesting book where they talk about building a fiber optic cable to an exchange is as straight line as possible, because even at the speed of light, that 300,000 miles per second, even at the speed of light, one bend in their fiber optic cable gives them a disadvantage from another. It's speed, it's fast. And high frequency trading happens in nanoseconds. They're shaving, little pieces. And the problem with that in a market, I think, is a lot of those models are what we call technical analysis based, meaning they're looking at numbers on a chart going up and down, simply price based, looking at momentums, looking at support and resistance, different, hundreds of different algorithms and measurements in how a price is moving up and down. But, essentially in the real world, supposedly, a price of a stock should be related to the value of that business. And so that's the fundamental side. So I look at a company like Coca-Cola and I say, Coca-Cola sells 2 billion drinks a day. They're having trouble competing with new brands like Prime and the sexy new, drinks that the kids like. But basically, they're a great business. What is that business worth? That should be their stock price. However, if you're not looking at the business and you're only looking at the price, you can become overvalued very quickly. You can become undervalued very quickly. So with the idea that people are not taking a long-term approach of saying, I like to own a business for 30 years, like Coca-Cola, they're saying, I just want to know what's going to happen in the next 5 seconds or 5 nanoseconds. It really detaches those charts from the fundamentals. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but from an AI, yeah, go ahead.
So if I'm going to use AI and people are going to say, well, I don't want to build a model of AI trading. And I really don't care. I know that Coca-Cola their business is not going to change in 10 minutes, right? Their business 10 minutes from now is the same business it was 10 minutes ago. But if I'm trying to shave this, people are worried about that volatility of the markets. The reason I don't worry about this is if AI changes prices with, if we give the stock market to AI and they're trying to get, that shave, because that's certainly the way it's gone. I mean, the trend has been to go fast and quick, that, oh my gosh, I need to compete with the computer now. I don't believe that's true, because anything can make it go up and down as it is right now. I mean, 9/11 can happen, down it goes. There can be a earthquake. I have to look at my positions as if anything could make it go up and down. To me, AI is just another factor. And I don't need to compete with high frequency trading. I haven't had to do that for the last 20 years, right? I don't have to be better or faster than them. I can still be a fundamental investor and do just fine. So tell me if I'm wrong on that.
Yeah, I think where you can really use AI in this case is for long-term predictions. So where could you be from today and 10 years from now? Are you going to be net positive or negative? Because you're going to use both the fundamentals and the stock movement over time to make those
Interesting.
long-term projections. So I think that's an area where AI can really help. And I think the robo advisors already use some form of AI, right, behind the scenes.
Oh, I would say that,
Yeah.
well, depending on what you want to call AI, I would say that on New York Stock Exchange,
Yeah.
easily 90% of the trading is done by machines right now.
Yeah.
Those decisions are made algorithmically right now, as they
Yeah.
are. And I believe that AI will simply enhance that and enhance the competition for
Mhm.
what we call the high frequency traders. But if you're not in the business of high frequency trading, I still think you can be a fundamental investor. What I think is interesting about what you just said is I believe, I mean, this is where this would be revolutionary, is I believe that you could make an argument that the defining characteristic of the markets is its unpredictability. I mean, it
Yeah.
is so difficult. And the reason we incessantly try to do it is if anyone that could do it, you have an intuitive knowledge that the profitability would be unspeakable. If you had a crystal ball, watch out. And so
Yeah.
if AI finally is that crystal ball, I think people should look at it more in the terms of AI could give you probabilities and data in terms of probability, like a weather forecast, rather than a crystal ball. But that would be the holy grail.
In essence, that's what it does. It generates things with a certain degree of probability. So whether you're not you use it is the question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And true investors use probabilities and have an A case and a B case and a C case. We have, a decision tree. We make a reactionary tree, really is what it is. So let's talk about the elephant in the room for a minute. The human race has become the dominant species, except unless you count coronavirus as being dominant. I don't know, but the human race it's kind of a shame. I don't think most humans see themselves as part of this world. A lot of humans see themselves as this world is for me to use. It's an interesting persona. There's a large amount of people that say, the animals and the fish and this is all our stuff given to us to manipulate. And being the ability to imagine, the ability to create, the opposing thumbs, we've just done a lot of things to this planet that are astounding. If you're on Mars watching, it's like, okay, the humans can do a lot of stuff. If you create something smarter than a human that has all kinds of I think you have to take that serious. I don't think you say, oh, we're not going to have Terminators running around. I get that. But the idea of controlling information and truthfulness versus, to have a veridical context, I think, if you create a machine smarter than you, what are the dangers of that? Because they have to be very real dangers. We've seen what has happened with cyber attacks, and we've seen anytime there's a new technology, there are evil thoughts in the minds of men and women that it could be a problem. So what are your thoughts on security? We're not going to control it. We're not going to have any legislation that's going to be effective to say, okay, world, let's put a moratorium on this. Let's slow down. The rewards are too big. It's going to happen. What are your thoughts on security?
Yeah, I think as it stands now, the problem is not in that AI can program itself and start taking over the world. It's how humans use the power of AI to do bad things. Like even setting up like a psychologist type of chatbot can have lots of negative effects. In fact, there was an article in the news that said somebody took their life after getting recommendations from a bot. So
Wow.
so thinking through those impact, like long-term impact, is our responsibility. But of course, we are going to somehow, there are bad actors who will use it for bad things like spying and detecting specific people and targeting them. The adversaries will use it for things like that. So we need to think about how to protect ourselves from that type of applications being built. So maybe not make that types of data that they can train on available. Like our images can be used very easily.
Right.
It's all on social media.
Yeah, I mean, even deep fake stuff.
Yeah.
The deep fake stuff. It's really interesting because I was always worried as a parent when my children were born with the you go to a movie like Jurassic Park and there's dinosaurs there, and that's in the 90s, right? And I told my wife, I go, how are our kids going to know the difference between what's real and what's fake? And what I found surprisingly is my kids, at least just in my family, they became masters of context. They could tell, even if visually it would look exactly that. I think people, most of them, when something seems a little off, they're suspecting that as being fake, CGI, deep fake, whatever. So hopefully we get smarter as a society. We live in a world where everyone's going to get a phone call at least once a day with someone trying to scam you. And so the defense that a human being is going to have is going to have to go up, right? Because how do they know that you and I aren't bots?
Yeah.
They'd say, well, he's not a bot because, you make a bot more handsome and about 25 pounds lighter, maybe, right? That's got to be Andy. But really, that is a concern. I've done some stuff with the AI voice. And I did 2 AI voices that were really fun. I did one to read my book, so I wouldn't have to go in the studio, and that's a long, arduous process. And I played it for my mom, and it freaked her out. I mean, it was really, it's getting really, really close. And then I did one where it was, this type of conversation with the different voice inflections, not a reading voice. I sent it to a friend of mine. He's like, man, that is really close. Yeah. So the idea that they could take someone like Elon Musk and say, hey, here's a truth, and we trust someone like Elon or President Biden or whoever it is, that's a huge security risk, and that's going to get worse. Yes.
Yeah, that is going to get worse. Not today, but in the next couple of years, you're going to see a lot of misuse of AI and bad applications being built based on like all these generative AI tools, because it's so easy to do it now.
Now, you mentioned that okay, right now there's probably, like, how do you define the jump from an algorithmic machine that just has tons and tons of rules that can take data, learn from it, and apply those rules and enhance their own rules? That's machine learning. We can learn to play Go and get better and better and better to where that really is undefeatable by a human at that point. You cannot think that many moves, and it's just better. Yeah. We're gonna build something that becomes self-aware, though, right? I mean, with the trajectory, with the speed at which this is learning and the speed at which this is going, we are going to have some type of self-awareness in a machine, aren't we? Where it believes it has an identity, possibly. I mean, how big of a jump is that?
Theory, yes, but practically speaking, AI systems don't have common sense reasoning power. So, and that is still very much in research right now. So
I'm not sure humans have common sense.
Yeah. I mean, like basic things that we are born with, the AI systems don't have. So they need to somehow be able to replicate that in machines. And once they start having that common sense reasoning, that's when you should really be fearful. Yeah, because then you think the way like we do. Like bad actors will think differently than the good actors.
I mean, really, when I took an anatomy class in college, and it was gross anatomy, where we go in and start taking apart bodies, and it was machinery. You had compressive strength of bones to hold someone upright. You had tensile strength of tendons. You had levers in joints. I mean, it really is the way you'd build a bicycle or a machine or a building or a car. There was fuel sources that there's systems for cooling and circulation. It's a machine. Well, if you look at how a brain works materialistically, it's matter, it's electrical circuitry, it's a network, it's a neural network. I mean, it's a machine. We're going to build a machine like that someday. We're going to build a machine that is self-aware. Is that something we want? I mean, we're not going to put the brakes on that, right? I mean, that's going to happen. Might
That
not be
is-
like a human, might not have the neurotransmitters to give it emotions and things. It wouldn't be, exactly like a human, but we're going to build a machine that can think, right?
It is going on in that direction, but when is the question? It can be 10 years, it can be 20 years, it can be not in
100
this
years.
lifetime. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Okay. So you talk about the current risks of AI. Here's one I really like. I want to figure out how to use AI. This is the most important question on my sheet. I want to figure out how to use AI to increase financial literacy. I think that as an educational tool, let's look at our education system. How did we learn? How did my great grandfather learn? Well, he got up, went to school, sat, had a teacher talk, went home, read books, did homework. I don't know that we're that much farther advanced than we were 100 years ago in school. Today, my kids go up, they go to school, they open their, laptop, and it's essentially the same stuff.
Mhm.
I just think education in general could be so much better with AI, and I just think it could do a better job than we could. If you're a school teacher, are you mortified about being replaced? So many people are going to be replaced with AI, tons of them. In the old days, I wasn't as worried about it because it would create more jobs, get a robot to build something. AI is a different thing. I mean, it's a thinking type of thing. So how does it affect education, particularly financial education?
Going to replace the primary teacher necessarily, but it's going to maybe make them more of a tutor rather than the information provider, because that information you can look up that information through an AI tool, or it can generate that information for you and teach you in creative ways, but you still need that layer to provide to answer some questions that an AI system may not be able to answer, or provide guidance on maybe learn this first, then that. So basically a coach rather than a teacher teaching material in class.
The thing that would excite me about an AI model as a teacher is, I believe, and I don't have data to back this up, this is just intuitive, but as I've spent my years as an educator, I found people learn in different ways. For example, some people are visual learners, some are auditory learners, some love metaphor, some love analogous. You tell a story in one context where they say, "Oh, I get this." I usually teach something outside of the context of stocks first. If I was going to teach options, I start with insurance because they know that. And once they understand, okay, make a promise, I get a premium. If I have a problem, I'm protected. They kind of understand that. Then you carry it over. So the ability to find an individual student that's right-brained, left-brained, creative, not creative, analytical, to have compassion for that student instead of one size fits all. An AI model could find 5 different ways to teach algebra, or 50 different ways to teach algebra, that is customized how it learns how this student performs the best, and just take people to the moon. I mean, am I off in that? I think we could get that like close. I don't think we're far away from being able to do something like that.
Even if the teacher provides the basic material, the AI system can tweak that to the students' learning abilities. So maybe visual learners get more images in their learning path, and some students may be slower learners, so maybe it goes slowly. So it can be very personalized based on the student's learning capacity.
And is it more important to learn AI? I mean, I'm an old man. I remember when I went to school, someone, I probably was in the 2nd or 3rd grade, some rich kid brought to school a Hewlett Packard calculator with red numbers on it, and it could add, subtract, multiply, and divide. That's all it could do. And it had these, it might have been Texas Instruments. I think it might have been a Texas Instruments calculator. And the school teacher, the grade school teachers, lost her mind because she says, that's cheating. You can't have a machine do this. That's cheating. You need to learn math. Does AI change what I need to learn? Do I even need financial literacy now in my life to say, you know what? I don't need to learn financial education. AI does all that for me. I don't need to learn how to write because I can speak and everything's written for me. I don't need to learn how to read because I can ask a question. And, how much learning do we need to do now? What do we decide needs to be learned and doesn't need to be learned? Hey, I don't need to learn how to write a research paper because I'll have AI do that for me. That's kind of an interesting world to live in.
Yeah. But yeah, I would advocate for that. We still need our foundations.
Okay.
And we still need to make money. We still need to do a job, and we need to know how to interact and write and read. So yeah, I think those foundational skills are still needed. Even how to prompt an AI system, you still need language.
Well, we're living in a new world. The book is The Business Case for AI, A Leader's Guide to AI Strategies, Best Practices, and Real-World Applications. You can pick this up at Amazon.com. Do you have Twitter or website you'd like to send out to everybody so they can learn more about you?
Yes, Kavita-Ganesan.com.
Okay, and that's GANESAN.
Correct.
.com. You've been delightful to talk to. I feel like I'm getting more ignorant as the body of knowledge grows, and I don't keep up with it. It's an interesting time to be alive, an exciting time to be alive. I'm so excited for my kids to grow up in this era. I mean, they're just going to experience things that are just mind-boggling. So it's a lot of fun. I'd encourage everyone to learn it. Regardless of what you do, this is going to touch your life. And the sooner you learn this one, the better off we all are. Any final advice for people? Should they worry about it? Should they be excited? Any last words for our listeners?
Give it a try. Before getting worried about it, give it a try. Put it to the test. Try to break it and see where it feels.
You've been listening to the Cash Flow Academy podcast. We've been talking about AI. And we hope you enjoyed our conversation. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Cash Flow Academy podcast with Andy Tanner. For more information on investing made easy, go to thecashflowacademy.com.